don't. Okay, you do not.
And they were cool, and they were going crazy.
The school's over 250.
It's one of those, it's that kind of crash.
You can't need to get that to somebody else.
Running off the point, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
No. So he said I could be there.
It's not back to start. And make sure that the tickets that they gave you are
I'm worried that she's
don't.
going to see her every time I go.
And does Haley wait on here?
Yeah.
I need to learn.
7:20 to 7:25.
Speaking candidly, as a mama, it worries me just a little bit.
It what?
It worries me just a little bit for the continuity, because these kids need it.
Right, and that's what I said to do.
I mean,
I don't.
I think it would be really good if these were relaxed.
We do need to resume. Yeah.
It's not red inside or anything.
I'm ready to start the conversation because this table is way off.
That was going to be my next question. Why did I don't know? Why it's even though it's
Maybe I got your shirt.
or is it something that you don't know?
All right. So I don't know if Terry's recording, but we'll go ahead and get started.
Somebody did it.
John's there talking about 90 pounds of leg or something.
I'm missing 21.
All right, so Mike, you have the
But you
bill.
also run
Not
on.
with you, but you
The bell, I got it with me, you want it?
not now. I'll get it from you after the meeting.
No, I mean,
So welcome to our regular stated Rotary meeting for the week. A couple things I'm gonna speed through because we have a long presentation today and some other stuff to get to. We have several special guests with us today. First being Laura Powers from the Sanford Rotary Group who's joining us today. We have a former classmate of mine and family of David and Chad and Mike and everybody else. Mary Beth is here with us today. Zach from Rise Against Hunger is here and he's going to do our presentation today. Alright, so announcements. Announcements we have are Satellite Club will be hopefully meeting their meeting in October will be at Smoking Barrel. So go ahead and put your calendars down that their meeting for October will be at Smoking Barrel on that first Tuesday. Second, on October 16th, we're going to have a roadside cleanup. And we're going to meet here at Blasians and then disperse up and down the corner up to the 55-mile speed limit. Make sure nobody gets hit and we don't have any kind of liability issues. So October 16th, we're going to have a road cleanup that Saturday morning starting at 8 a.m. All right?
Is Sanford Rotary invited to the Rotary?
We decided this is a board meeting, so we're going to invite them.
I wouldn't invite
It
them.
was,
They're the ones that throw trash out the window.
All right. Any other announcements? Backpack is this week? Not next week, next week.
Next Thursday, yeah.
Next Thursday.
And we only had 4 last month, and we needed to turnout for that, because you did 500 bags.
450 bags.
Yeah.
Took us a while.
Unfortunately, I will not be there, or maybe fortunately, because it's our 60th wedding anniversary.
Oh my God.
We're taking the family up to Lake Geneva. That's a buck.
It was only worth $1 60 years?
This-
Come on, Larry.
Well, that's all she gave me.
Any other
Woman.
announcements or brags? Go ahead, Terry.
Who I give my dollar to?
Money.
You give it to Neil.
This dollar, I wish I could give $102, but I didn't have it today. I left Pittsburgh a few minutes ago for video on Mr. Hart. He was in World War II vet, and the French government came down and gave him some big award for all the service he done, the Battle of the Bow, the Normandy, and all that good stuff, you know, like, so, Mr. Hart, he speaks very well, very nice and friendly, just like my good friend Peggy. He's very nice, 102 years old, so, you know, I don't care if he's a veteran or not a veteran. Hey, just let's give him a hand, send it all the way to Pittsburgh.
Any other brags? Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, I'm not quite sure whether it's a brag or whether it's even good news. But I managed to force myself back onto the Lee County Arts Council board.
Oh, nice. Very good.
And I'd like to talk to you about it maybe in a month or so.
Okay.
Very good.
I have a brag.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a two-part brag. We had a fabulous summer at the temple. I missed you all. We served 423 kids. So I'm really proud of that. And next week, I won't be here because I'm going back up to New York for the first time in 3 years. Because Michael Hoagland, who wrote Treasure Island with me, wrote Christmas Carol, wrote Alice in Wonderland with me, is getting married. So I get to celebrate that. He's so creative, and in the past year, we've done 3 of his shows, and he has forfeited his royalties for those shows because of the pandemic and because he's a nice guy. So the brag's really about him. So yay!
All right. Any other brags? All right, one quick announcement. So in the past, where we used to deflame taking the tip out of overall money we gave him, that's not the case for Blaze. So we need to pass a blue bucket or a Neil's hat, would be just fine, for a tip for last week here, and then if you'll need tip for this week on the table. So, and if you want to have to do it on a card on the way out, that may be another way to do it. But that was a blunder on my part. I didn't even think about it the way it was for years. But the plane where it was included. Yes, ma'am. We're good.
Oh, no, it's good, yeah.
So if you'll leave this week's on the table, and last week's we'll put some in his hat.
Patrick's being nice. None of us thought of it, but I've let the folks know at the management here that in 25 years I've never left a tip for Rotary because it's built into our due structure. So at Rotary, and I forgot, Neil knows, we were probably billed at the Flame $10.50 per meal.
$12.50.
Or maybe $12.50 for a meal. And so here, it's a $10 charge and all that stuff, but that just gets you in the door. Well, built into that might be a $1 or $2 tip. So thank you, Patrick, for bringing that up, but
Neil.
felt kind of bad that we really didn't think of it
I
as
wasn't
Rotarians. I don't think it was intentional. We just didn't think of it.
I'll make sure this money in the hat gets to Justine, who was our waitress last week.
Yeah.
And then this week, get on the
Yeah.
tip process. All right. I have no other announcements or brags. At this time, I want to turn it over to Yvonne.
I am, last year, I was considered family of Rotary. And I had put my resignation in because I'm going to be moving soon, and I wanted to try to take care of some things before I left. And so I would like to have David Spivey come forward, please.
Come forward here.
Yeah. If I can see you. Okay. I wrote something, David. I put it down. Right. Okay. After my first meeting with David Spider was in 2001. As a recent widow, I inquired at the Chamber of Commerce to see if more homes were needed for out-of-towners during the U.S. Open scheduled for Pinehurst. No homes were needed, so I asked if the Chamber needed a volunteer. I was told to start the next day. For approximately 7 years, I spent my time volunteering and getting acquainted with Lee County business community. David Spivey was active at the chamber and served as the chairman of the board of directors. He also served on other boards such as Red Cross, where he asked me to serve as secretary. I did so for several years. David would often mention his Rotary Club and their work to eradicate polio worldwide, but that caught my attention. My father was a victim of polio 18 months after his bad birth and ended up on crutches during his lifetime. Each year, chamber members were invited to visit their U.S. Congressman, U.S. Senator Jesse Helms, and U.S. Representative Bob Etheridge at the time. I was privileged to attend the 2001 meeting with David and 4 others, to include the Lee County Manager and the Chair of Economic Development Corporation. After introduction, the meeting was canceled because of the event that happened on September the 11th at the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Since 2001, we 6 have enjoyed meeting on the 5th and the 10th anniversary and reunion. This year will be our 20th reunion. Aside from the business and civic outreach, David also plays music in several local bands. David recently became chairman of the Lee County Community Foundation, where I also served on the board of directors. David is a 2-time past president of the Jonesboro Rotary Club and has twice served as the assistant district governor for Area 10 of District 7690. David is a 2-time past president of, well, I've already done that. David has done a spectacular job as a father and mentor for his family, Rotary, and business community. His wife, Carolyn, who couldn't be with us today, travels with him for district events and conventions. His sons, Chad and Greg Spivey, are members of Jonesboro Rotary, as is his son-in-law, Mike Stepp. David was instrumental in helping form the Jonesboro Rotary Satellite Club with his son, Chad. Thanks to Chad Spivey, Jonesboro Rotary led the district in membership with plus 18 members. David also helped current President Jeremy Thomas to attain the Past Even Platinum Club Award for 2020-2021. With his good humor and love of mankind, David never gets too busy to say yes to anyone, especially in Rotary. So, David, I just want to say thank you for your service for these past 20 years that I've known you, and I just wish you the best in coming years.
Chad, Mary Beth, why don't you guys get up to the front? We can do a photo with you guys. This is the Family of Rotary Award. So David didn't know about this was going to happen, and we invited his family to be here. And now he's networking with more Rotary stuff on. Because that's just what David does. And I guess Greg couldn't make it because he was out in the field probably. But congratulations, David.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right. And thank you, Yvonne, for putting that together and having it framed and presenting that to David. And then also thank you to John for helping with that as well.
Sure, you're welcome.
So, all right, moving right along into our presentation. Today we have Zach Cargus from Rise Against Hunger, who's going to give us a presentation on Rise Against Hunger and let us know how that is going to go this year during the pandemic. The floor is yours.
All right. How y'all doing this afternoon? Is it afternoon? Yeah,
Good.
afternoon. Yeah. All right. How many of y'all have been to a Rise Against Hunger event? Let's see. Anyone not been to a hunger event? There's a better question. There we go. Well, a little bit about Rise Against Hunger. We started right down the road in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1998. Started doing these meal packing events in 2005. And so at these meal packing events, we create an assembly line. Typically, 40 people can do about 10,000 meals in an hour and a half. We throw on music. We bring a gong every 1,000 meals. It's a really awesome time. And anyone that has been to one of these events before can definitely tell those that haven't how much fun it is and how much impact those meals have on the families out. That's what I'll talk a little bit more now. So, the history of Rise Against Hunger, since 2005 to now, we have grown to 20 locations across the United States, and we have packaged more than 550 million meals that we've distributed all over the world. And that's all thanks to volunteers just like you all, having us coming back to doing events, but also spreading the word and having us continue to grow. Now a little bit about the history with Rotary and Rise Against Hunger. So we have been partners with Rotary from the very beginning. Our founder is a Rotarian. Many of our full-time staff are Rotarians. We are a collaborative organization with Rotary, so that means we can easily partner with you guys. Don't have to fill out a bunch of fun paperwork and stuff. We can partner very easily and quickly. We have engaged over 60,000 Rotarians through our partnerships, and we have packaged meals in 11 different countries. And throughout our history, you guys have directly sponsored over 31 million meals with Rise Against Hunger. But who knows how many more you guys have meals that can be added to that with your sponsorships of different churches and other civic groups and partnerships as well. I mean, it could be well above that, closer to 100 million for the amount of meals that you guys have been able to help sponsor with us. You guys have helped distribute meals and other resources with around 78 countries around the world. One of the biggest ones you guys have been helping out with the last couple of years is actually in Venezuela, in the country, or at least the refugees coming out of Venezuela in Colombia. We have been partnering together to create stops along the way for these folks who are walking through the country to get to other places. And we were feeding probably close to about 6,000 people a day throughout all these stops, and Rotary was helping us not only procure the food and other resources, but helping distribute the food in the country of Colombia as well. So that was a pretty amazing feat that we were able to do for the last couple of years. Rotary has a goal of doing over 250 million meals with Rise Against Hunger by 2030. And so far, there have been 5 districts where the district alone has packaged 1 million meals. And so that's a pretty amazing feat. And so a lot of other groups around here in North Carolina, I don't think we're quite to 1 million meals with a couple of those groups, but you guys have been doing a lot of amazing stuff around this area. Now, I want to kind of talk to you guys a little bit about how 2020 went for us. It was pretty hard. We ended up having to scale back. We ended up closing a number of our warehouses in certain areas, scaling back on staff. Like a lot of other nonprofits around the country, had to scale back a lot. In 2019, we packaged 78 million meals that we distributed around the world. In 2020, we did 22 million. So it's a pretty big deficit. And typically, in March of 2020, when we shut down, we packaged 0 meals until the end of August. Typically that time, we packaged 22 million meals in that amount of time. And so it did hit us and our beneficiaries pretty hard. We've had to scale back even on the number of beneficiaries we can help just because we don't have the meals to support them. But luckily, thanks to partnerships like Rotary and some other big donations from our corporate sponsors like Disney, Hilton, hotels, United Airlines, we were able to make it through the pandemic. We are leaner. We feel like we are in actually a very good position to bounce back. The next 3 years, we are hoping to be back to where we were, and then by 2025 being well beyond that, and continuing to package more meals and doing a lot more projects around the world. Our main key areas of where we focus in around the globe, and we're trying to get to a world without hunger. That is our goal. We came up with 4 pathways that we believe are going to help us and our partner organizations reach that goal. The nourishing lives, the empowering communities, responding to emergencies, and growing the movement are our 4 pathways. Some pretty cool numbers from 2020. Even though we were kind of held back by the pandemic, we were still able to serve in 19 countries and helping benefit about 1.7 million people and are responding to emergencies pathway. And a really big thing about this as well is our donations were up very high. Even though we weren't able to package meals, people still believed in our mission and were able to donate to us. We were able to procure over 304 million tons of food locally. So even though we couldn't package our meals and send them out, we were able to get the funds to purchase food locally to help a lot of our beneficiaries get through to where we are today. And that kind of encompasses also our Nourishing Lives pathway. We were able to do about 25 million meals for this pathway through the whole year. We were able to distribute 25 million meals in 2020, so there are some left over from 2019 to be able to move that through, do more than what we actually package. But the big thing with our Nourishing Lives pathway is making sure that our meals are going to school development programs all over the world. So the big thing with us is making sure that we're not just feeding people, but we're providing them with the resources that they need to become self-sustaining. And so, you know, unfortunately, in 2020, a lot of schools didn't even, kids didn't come to school. So we had to work with our partners to find out ways where we could actually provide them not only a meal to take home, but school projects and school stuff that they can take home. And a lot of these places, it's not as easy as printing a bunch of stuff and sending it their way. And so there was work with teaching, you know, if there's a lot of kids were coming from one village, sometimes they'd only send one kid to learn the lesson and go back to teach the rest. I mean, that's basically what we had to do for a lot of these schools out there. And then having smaller groups come and pick up the meals and take them home. And another thing we tried to increase as well is providing the meals for not just the kids, but also the families while they're going through the pandemic. And that's a big thing too. You know, we're starting to bounce back now. Some of our communities are going to be feeling this pandemic for, you know, the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to hit a lot of these places that hard. And so, you know, going above and beyond the meals is the next pathway, which is empowering communities. So we're doing some pretty amazing programs by, you know, providing the knowledge and resources, you know, to help these folks become self-sustaining, but also, you know, teaching them a big thing is farming. And, you know, a lot of people know how to farm around the world, but we're also providing them with good quality seeds. It's one of the big things that's really hard for farmers to get. You know, if you have a poor seed and you keep using that poor seed, their yields might be 30% compared to a yield of another seed that could be up to 70 to 80% yields from that one seed. And that's a huge difference for these families. We're also teaching people how to diversify what they're growing so they can increase their growing seasons. And so they can get more food, but also more nutrition. They're not just getting just corn that they're eating for a long, long time. They're really diversifying what they're eating and they're becoming healthier. And the big thing too is most of these families that are doing this are also growing enough not only for their family, but to sell at a market or to give to a hospital or a local school on top of the meals that we provide to the school program, so that the kids are getting fresh nutrients. Our meals that we make are very protein rich, very high nutrients, but there's just some stuff you can't get from that, you know, you can get from fresh produce that you can't just in a dried packet like we have. And so they're also providing stuff to hospitals. The big thing we don't think about here in the United States is most hospitals around the world do not provide any sort of food. You're in there and the family brings you food while you're there, and you need food to be healthier. And so they're actually providing vegetables and fresh food so that these patients can heal quicker and get out of the hospital a lot faster. And we're also focusing on, in this Empowering Communities pathway, is wash programs or sanitization and water projects to make sure that people know how to wash their hands properly, especially with COVID. That's a big, big thing to help stop the spread. And then making sure people are using clean water with the meals that we have or any of the food that they're making. Because if the water isn't clean, our meals aren't going to have any impact at all. If they're sick, a lot of times their body will just wash whatever they have out of their body as quickly as possible, so they're not gaining any nutrients from whatever they're putting in their body. So that is a huge thing for us as well. And a big thing we also focus on is equality. So a lot of times in most places around the world, the women are the farmers. The men are usually in only a couple of spots throughout the farming process. And so there are women out there that are not only running the entire farm, but running their entire households. And so they're trying to create equality to help men get into the whole entire process to split a lot of the workload, and has helped a lot of families around. And then also, even if there are men farmers out there, they're provided way more resources than the women farmers are. Again, with the seeds, but even with just the equipment that they need to farm. And so trying to make sure everything is as even as possible to help as many people as possible. And that's the great thing about a lot of these programs is there's a ripple effect. So we'll teach a couple of families here, and a lot of times they'll share it with their neighbors and be able to work together. There's a pretty amazing story of a young lady in Eswatini, where we have the program where we're teaching folks how to create a local garden just, on their patio that's probably no bigger than that table right there. And there's ways that we can stack stuff up. But she has actually worked with her neighbors and is renting their land. And working with them to use their lawns and everything, and she's providing enough food for her, those 5 or 6 neighbors around her, and enough for the school nearby, and enough for the hospital. And so she has created a whole business by renting, and she's able to rent the land and do all this stuff just from teaching her how to do something on a small scale like that. She was able to expand that. And so there's some amazing stories like that, all over the place from these empowering community programs. It has doubled and almost tripled her yearly income that she is bringing in for her and her family. And so, there are a lot more stories that I could talk about. I could talk for hours about all the amazing stories that are out there. But if you guys go to riseagainsthunger.org, you guys can see our blog posts about all the new stuff coming out, all the really cool stories out there from all over the world. And the last kind of pathway is growing the movement. And a lot of times that comes from volunteers just like you are. We truly wouldn't be here today in the organization we are without our volunteer base. And we try to spend as little on advertising that we can, because we want all of our money going into the mission of ending world hunger. So if you do see videos or marketing stuff from us, a lot of it is donated by some of the companies we work with. And we have some pretty cool videos on our YouTube channel that has gone through that are highly suggest you guys to check out as well. But we were able to do a lot of stuff virtually in 2020. We came up with a trivia contest that we were able to do with a lot of corporations. One corporation had 2,500 participants over 7 different countries, I believe it was. They did it for their main yearly get-together, but they all did it virtually, so we were able to still talk to over 2,000 people in an hour's time, have a good, challenging competition between the folks, and it was a lot of really good fun. We were also doing virtual 5Ks. I know a lot of groups are doing that, but we were doing virtual 5Ks, and one of the groups raised over $60,000. There's a church that did it. They did it together out in California, and I can't remember how many miles that they actually all ran together. They ended up close to being like over 100,000 miles between all the people who were actually running, and then they raised over $60,000. This is just amazing. And so we did a bigger one all together as an organization. We raised about $120,000, and that is our Ride and Stride race. So we're going to make that an annual thing. So if there are any runners or quick walkers like myself out there that wants to do that, that comes out in around May. So keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. But it's pretty cool that we were, growing the movement even in 2020. With the pandemic, we were still able to do meal packing events, which is really cool. We were able to do it socially distanced, or at least family units. And so that's why we were able to do the 22 million meals, but we were able to engage over 85,000 volunteers in 2020. And that's an amazing number. And really, we didn't have any spreading of the variant, or of COVID-19, or the variant so far. Our first instance of someone possibly testing positive at an event was last week. And so luckily, no one tested positive from that, so we're good to go. So we're able to do these meal packing events right now, very clean and very safe for folks that are coming through. Here, any other numbers that I can think about? Pretty much it for now. There we go. I did want to talk about one group where it's pretty amazing, called Kids Connect for Jesus out of Belize. And so what this group is they run a school program for those who are in elementary school and middle school. In Belize, you actually have to pay for high school, but they do some tutoring for those folks, and they do provide some scholarships for those that need it to go to high school. But they typically feed in their programs about 3,500 kids a day through their school programs in a normal time. In 2020, they had to be a little bit lean, but they're one of the groups that we are modeling a lot of stuff out of, because we were able to help them build a greenhouse late 2019, which ended up being the perfect time to build a greenhouse. But they were able to cut their number of meals that they needed from us in half, and so that they were able to self-sustain themselves halfway in there. I think now they've built another greenhouse, and they're hopefully no longer going to need our meals by the end of this year. That is their goal, and they're looking like they're going to make that goal even with COVID. And that's the kind of thing we want to do. We want to have end dates with all of our partners around the world. And they're so thankful for what we were able to provide for that. Not only the meals we've been providing for the last about 60 years, but we've also been able to provide computers. We're able to help out with one of the health clinics that they partner with as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we were able to help them with. But that's the big thing, is they're hopefully one day only going to need more medical supplies and maybe some school supplies from us. But the meal part, they're going to be able to feed all their kids that they provide with everything. So that is just a pretty amazing feat, and that's something that we are trying to do with everything. And so, that's all I have kind of as an update, but if there's anyone that has any questions, I'd love to answer any questions that you guys may have about current stuff or anything.
Yeah, I'll remind the club that our district grant, along with Sanford Club, is to do a Rise Against Hunger project next March. We haven't set the exact date, but probably it's going to be the first Saturday in March. And we'll be in touch with you, in a month or two and try to get, an exact date nailed down and that kind of thing. But majority of everybody here, show of hands, knows all about Rise Against Hunger. But for those that you haven't done it, it's really a fun event, and you're doing a great service. But it's amazing. How the last time, we didn't do it last year obviously, but 2 years ago we packed, I think it was 34,000 meals in 4 hours. 2-2-hour shifts is what we do. So but anyway, we'll just letting everybody know that we're going to be, that's our district grant that we wrote this year, so we'll be in touch.
Organized chaos is what I like to tell them. Sometimes.
Well, so it's appropriate, David, that we gave you the Family of Rotary award today, but I wanted to say, yes, it's a blast for us adults to go to these events, but I've been bringing my kids, who are now 17 and 19, to this event for the past 12 to 15 years. So I'm trying to tell you that who has kids below 16 or 20, it's a fantastic event for the kids to go to as well, especially when you get them to bang the gong.
That's what Maddie did when she
Oh my
was
gosh, are you
young.
kidding?
Yeah.
I've got boys and they just bang as hard as they could. They tried to bang the ring out of it. Yeah, you're gonna let me do this? Yeah, go ahead.
We always say ages 5 to 105 can participate.
Yeah.
So that's usually a good circle. But I mean, to have littler kids usually with the sealed bags, that's a good spot for 3 or 4-year-olds.
Yep.
It only lasts about 30 minutes and, with concentration, but they still have a lot of fun. After that, they're just running.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? All right. Before we wrap up, I just want to read this to you. Hunger is actually the worst weapon of mass destruction and claims millions of victims every year. And overcoming poverty is not just a gesture of charity; it's truly an act of justice. So thank you for coming today and doing this presentation for me. Draw a ticket. Prize today is $40, and the winning ticket is last four 4718. All right, Trey.
You good, Trey?
I know. Keep it.
Yeah, down in the back.
So that's 40 back in the bucket for Polio Plus. Thank you, Trey, for that. But you do get to stand up and lead us in the 4-way test.
And guess what? You got to face the camera.
Face the camera?
Yeah, you forgot to face the camera.
Whenever
Pass
you're
it
ready,
out to you
Trey.
before you-
4-way test. Things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't forget, backpack next Thursday. Larry will not be there, so come on.